Hey, welcome. This is The Process. My name is Dr. John Bush. We continue quarterback deep metrics. This is, I think, the fourth one in this lesson. And again, every year I go in and dig through the quarterbacks. I like the long-term trends, the landscape view, the top-down approach on a lot of this. I know this is different and probably not of major interest, but it interests me a lot, and hopefully you learn a little bit and can plan for your 2022 season. We've seen a lot of interesting things occurring over the last 21 years in fantasy football quarterback metrics, and this is kind of a focus into that rushing, passing, age kind of thing that we found in the last episode. So I'll roll through this. This shouldn't take so long here. Here is average points, and the age now is broken out individually by year. So we have age 21 through 44. We have then something called rank sector, which is basically the 75th to 100 percentile. So that is the end of the season year top 25% of quarterbacks. And I divided the year into segments there. So year segment 2000 to 2005, 2006 to 11, 2012 to 2018, 2019 to 2021, and then I present the average fantasy points here. And we can certainly see that if you look across the whole 21 years and uh, mark the numbers, the average is high to low, high is green, low is red, we see the continuation or the support of the dramatic change that has occurred in the quarterback position here. This is the latest, 2019 to 21. We see a lot of activity early. We see then people like Brady, Breeze, etc. late here, and then kind of some down drafts and then kind of upward here. So I think a lot of some of these hot dogs are really putting on the Ritz here early, and then kind of there's some decline 27 to about 31. And then I think what's happening after 30, 31, 32 is we're getting these long-term quarterbacks, these super quarterbacks, the Breeze, the Brady, etc., coming through, and they're performing way above the average here. And I think that's what the data is showing us here. And if we look at, then this is fantasy points in the top 25 percentile over the 21 years. We pretty much look at the red here is the trend line for the last 3 years, and then the preceding years before that's in orange, and these are way above then 2011 back here. So we certainly see that, and it really highlights that barbell trend of the early quarterbacks and the later ones, and then kind of this middle drop from about, about 28 to about 35, and then you actually see the few that are left are really standing out here. And so what you're seeing is very few quarterbacks here, but the ones that are surviving are really doing well. And so that kind of disguises the actual tendencies here. But if you kind of look at the drop, it looks around 26 if you just follow the numbers here. And it looks like by 27, certainly by 28, then you're getting this drop trend. So I would definitely kind of keep that in mind for most quarterbacks, except for these super, producer quarterbacks, the next Brady's, etc., Breeze that could be in the way up at that point. So those certainly for dynasty, they're going to break the mold here, but for the run of the mill type quarterbacks, some of the late 20s, you're starting to get some risk. I'm sorry, the uncertainty of the situation is occurring, and just be aware there's really multiple stories occurring here in the quarterback position. Here's pass attempts. And again, with some exceptions, the last few years have been really nice. But notice we start seeing a peak, and in this case, the last 3 years, it peaked at 27, and then 28, we had this severe drop off. But then the few quarterbacks that are making it, they're producing in the late mid 30s. So again, story one and story two here. And realize that some of these early hot dogs are kind of getting a little bit different than what we've seen recently. Even in 2012 to 18, we see not a lot of passing attempts that, these later super quarterbacks are being 32, 30. This was kind of Brady, Breeze, and then they moved up to here. So I'm curious, are any of these types still in the conveyor belt moving across the age there? It is something to consider as well. So that's passing attempts. Here it is plotted. And here's in blue, the last couple years, and we see that movement up in the passing. These are the super quarterbacks here. And again, we saw the trend. See, because of this late thing, the trend line is not catching this early part of the trend where things are crashing at 28 or so. So that can be a little bit misleading, that trend line. So you do have to pay attention to that somewhat. So again, I think we're on safe ground at 26, but at 27, 28, you definitely need to double check your quarterbacks to see what, in fact, you have, especially in Dynasty, and whether they're worth that gamble that they're going to be the next Brady Breeze types that are going to have that super longevity. Here's rushing, and I think it was very clear from the data that the early hot dogs, the ones that are producing now, are really accelerating in the rushing quarterback, but that drops down by age, 26 or so? And then the older quarterbacks certainly are not rushing pretty much at all at that point. So they're striking hard early and then declining, and they have to move then to a more passing scenario. So you've got that scenario happening, and I think the data is pretty much nailing that the rushing here is pretty good till 25, maybe you're hitting a plateau. And certainly by 27, we've pretty much lost that running potential there. And even the extremes are early 22, 23, and you're even starting to see decline by 24, 25. So if you've got some of those rushing quarterbacks, just be aware that it doesn't last forever and ever. And that transition to more of a steady passing type is going to have to happen for them. And this just data certainly, supports that. So again, this lesson has been just confirming what I think the previous lesson showed us, but we were only looking at the top 25 quarterbacks here, and I think it really nails home that trend. So in 2022, you definitely need to use age as a measurement, but a measurement on rushing in some ways, maybe more than, passing uh, per se, and just combine the two for the complete story. And if you'll go back to my principal component analysis lesson from last year, you'll see that rushing ability is a separate component for grading out fantasy quarterbacks, and that, but realize that that does expire, kind of like your milk expires at certain ages. So you only can last so long before it's going to you're going to lose that kind of impact here on their performance. So don't stay too long at the trough there in Dynasty, depending only on the rushing. So be aware that age does catch up with these rushing quarterbacks here. So that was kind of a short lesson. You should go through this quickly. Thanks for uh, listening. This is Dr. Bush for the process, and I've got, I think, one more for the quarterbacks, and we'll then move to running backs coming up real soon. Thanks again for listening. This is lots of fun here. Fun.